In these final chapters, we're really looking at elements and environments of presenting, not so much new presentation forms, because we've really covered the basic forms that you would utilize. These are just different environments in which you would use them, such as presenting online. Now, simply 3 years ago, Zoom wasn't heard of. And the idea of doing so much of what we now do online was not really taking hold. Then along came COVID, and suddenly we found ourselves forced into a digital environment. And as you can see, with a few dips, that's still going up. Even as we're coming out of COVID, we are finding that we are presenting more and more online. There are a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of instructional videos out there to really get you to understand how to look your best online. This chapter is more of an overview of presenting online. What we want to talk about is understanding synchronous meetings versus asynchronous meetings. We want to look at the type of online presentations you might be required to do that would draw from your informative, your persuasive, or your networking speech. We want to look at the amorphous audience, the audience that you don't really know, online presentations, and a few tips to get you ready for presenting online. Understanding a synchronous meeting. That is the meeting that goes live, that is in person. That's your Zoom meetings. That's your FaceTiming type of meetings. Now, they are different than face-to-face though, because in face-to-face, we get a lot more messages sent through our nonverbal. In this case, we're relying on this, a short image. So our face becomes our primary way to gesture and show emotion. Meanwhile, in front of a group that's seated 10 feet away, it's not going to work that way, or even if they're 5 feet away, because you can use proxemics, you can use your timing, you can use change of tone, you can use exaggerated body language. All of that helps with that communication. But once you become a digitalized box, suddenly you're limited to what you're sharing. So your vocal tones, your rhythm, your rate, your pauses, all of those become very important. Normally we speed up for some reason when we're online. It's kind of like we're rushing to get through the phone call. But if we are going to present well online, we have to practice online, which means we have to go into meetings with friends and just practice presenting there, so that way we get an idea of how much faster we go and how we can change our pacing. Eye contact. I'm a person that's huge with eye contact. I'm trained in eye contact. I always look at faces. But if I look at the faces on a computer, I'm not making eye contact. So that's one area that we do absolutely adjust and change, so that way we get more comfortable with it. Eye contact in this case is with the camera, not the faces in front of you. Additionally, we have that synchronous, but when we move into asynchronous, such as this one, what I'm doing right now is asynchronous. We're not lined up. You're watching this video when it's convenient for you to advance in the class. So I have to kind of take my audience analysis and look at, okay, who's signed up for my class? General information about them that I can understand. 18 to 24, normally. A few non-traditional students out there, a little bit older, but you're all interested in public speaking. You're all in college. So I have an idea. Even the region I'm a little bit familiar with. So this helps. That gives me a little bit of idea. And those are the asynchronous. Asynchronous, you also have to realize, is linear. I'm putting this out there without feedback from you. So feedback will come much later. So I look at this as a linear form of communication. A synchronous one, when you're online, is not the transactional model. The transactional model is we convert our message or change our message even as we're forming it based on nonverbal cues and other signal feedback loops that we get. No, that doesn't work online, we found, even with synchronous. We end up with a interactional one. where I compose my message, I send it, you receive the message, you compose feedback, and you give it. Because if we don't wait for that loop, we step all over each other and it becomes difficult. So online, realize you're talking linear and you're talking interactional. You can do this with webinars, videocasts, and screencasts. All these are forms of both synchronous and asynchronous communication. The amorphous audience, the unknown audience. As I was mentioning, I have an idea of who is in my class. Now, if we were in a classroom, I know you even better, because in that first day in those introductions, I get ideas of, okay, which audience members are going to give me the feedback I need. So when I'm talking to a classroom, I can talk to a certain person and know they're going to give me that feedback. I don't get that with this. Instead, I have to really rely on my audience analysis. And the audience analysis can come from the corporation, the group that you're working with, the company that you're working with. That will tell you who your overall group is. You can also do a little bit more by knowing what network you're presenting on. If you're presenting on Zoom or one of these other synchronous platforms, well, the only people that are going to be there are those that you invite and those that you've opened up and let into the meeting. So you understand who's coming in that case. Your audience analysis is easier. Now, if you're doing a YouTube video or a YouTube channel, boy, you really got to look at, all right, who am I trying to reach? How can I reach them? And you're actually going out, not just doing an audience analysis, but trying to reach out to a particular audience to draw them in. Platforms such as TikTok, you're going to have a younger group. And so the network and the platform you're using can tell you a lot about who your audience is, and they're not just a Morpheus blob out there where you're unsure. Conducting online presentations. Practice, practice, practice is so important in both live and online. With the online, you need to practice with the tools you will be using. In other words, practice with the hardware. Practice with the camera you're actually going to be using. Know your setup. Do you have 1 screen, 2 screen, 3 screens? How is your setup going? What is the hardware? Where's the mic? Do you need another mic? All of these things will help you in presenting online. Know the hardware. Know the software as well. I know PowerPoint pretty well because I've had to present on it for several semesters now. And that really has opened up, so I know what I can do and how it works, and it works pretty easily for me. That's one type of software. Of course, there's meeting platforms. If you're on Zoom, for instance, and you want to share a video, do you know how to do that without going to a link and pulling the link up and then taking you out of Zoom and all these weird things? Or can you just share your screen? So know your software and your hardware. Both of those will make your presentations better and higher quality. Set your environment. You will control it when you're online. You can control lighting, you can control distractions, you can control your background. All those are very beneficial. So practice with it. Practice with your lighting, your color, your composition, your sound, so that way you get the best presentation possible. If you're recording, there's never a reason to record something bad and put it out there. You have time to go back and redo it and do it correctly. Now there you can find a lot of videos on YouTube that will help you with setting that environment. Watch them, learn, get different sources of information that gives you the idea to present how you want to present. Tips. Again, practice, practice, practice with the technology, with the software, so that way you are comfortable with it, and when the time comes, you can present. For instance, you might have a Zoom meeting that's a job interview. You don't want to go on there and share a screen and have tabs open on your computer that you're like, ooh, wow, I wish I hadn't seen that. Or have something in your background that you wish hadn't been there. So by practicing, you can eliminate those things that will trip you up. You can also see, well, where do I look best? Should I lean forward? Do I sit back? What part of me is going to be seen? So you can actually create meetings and invite friends and practice with them. You can also record yourself. All these are great ways to practice. Be energetic. It is too easy to become just melancholy when you're presenting online, like a boring phone call. No, have that energy. Keep that energy in your presentations online. Maybe even step it up a little bit, because that energy will go through to who's watching and keep their attention. Attention getters are huge online, and add them in as you're going. Add in that strategic pause to get your audience's full attention. So absolutely use energy. Maintain your focus. Don't get lost. No squirrels allowed. You know what you have to do, so build your speech as you would for any other presentation. Have that rough draft. Do the full sentence. Do the keyword outline. All of those will help. Now remember, it's going to be important to keep eye contact. So even when you're doing a PowerPoint like I'm doing, if you spend the whole time reading your presentation from the PowerPoint, your audience will realize you are reading it and not paying any attention to them. Pay attention to your audience. So it is important to do that. What you can do is, if you really need to put notes in front of you to keep you on track, you can put them up next to the camera. And by putting them near the camera, you can actually read them or glance at them from side to side without having them in your hand. Keep the audience engaged. Don't do too much. Don't do too little. Don't rely on special effects. Instead, keep the solid presentation. Keep that informative speech solid. Give it like you would in person and adapt it for online. Same with persuasive. All right, so keep the audience engaged. They will appreciate it. Follow the format that we've done all semester, and they'll know from your introduction to the body to the conclusion. They'll have the preview and the review. They will have that mic drop at the end. They'll follow along. You'll do great. What we want to talk about is understanding these online meetings. Types of online presentations, the amorphous audience, the unknown audience, the online presentation, and a few tips. When presenting online, you're just as a wave of a movement of the ocean. You are the energy of the cosmos. Don't underestimate your power. Don't underestimate the energy that you put into an online presentation, because that will connect with your audience.